proven to help you lose fat. How much fat? For every pound of weight.
Dark Shadows, 1971. A taxi halts in front of Connorwood and deposits a young, dark-haired girl. She stood still for a long moment, studying the huge mansion as a small shiver went through her for no apparent reason. The whole house was covered in almost complete darkness, as if hiding in the dark shadows of the gnarled trees that stood guard-like on either side of the entranceway. She sighed deeply, then grasped the brass knocker and brought it down hard. Almost immediately, Quentin Collins steps outside and stared frozen at the sight of her. "Daphne," he gasped, astonished. He asked if she is real or a ghost. Taken aback, the girl says she's never been asked a more peculiar question. She assures him she is not a ghost. Quentin, somewhat embarrassed, apologizes, then introduces himself. He learns she is Tracy Harridge, Mrs. Starr's new secretary, who will be staying at Collinwood. At the old house, Barnabas Collins and Dr. Julia Hoffman reminisce over the tragic events they both have witnessed in 1840. Barnabas sadly recalls the moment Lamar Trask fatally shot Angelique and says the memory of her death shall haunt him forever. He regrets he had not realized sooner she was his only true love. Julia is understandably outraged and upset. "You can't mean that," she snaps. She reminds him of all the horrible tragedies caused by Angelique, including the death of his little sister Sarah. Can you simply forgive and forget all that? She fears Angelique could still return and suggests they move far away from Collinsport. Barnabas insists they must first concentrate on the cure for his vampirism. Julia accuses Barnabas of releasing vampire Roxanne Drew from her chained coffin in the secret room behind the bookcase. Is this why he's a vampire again? Her coffin was found empty. Barnabas points out that Roxanne's brother, Randall Drew, destroyed her in 1840, and this is why the coffin was found empty. He refuses to discuss it further and goes outside without a backward glance, leaving Julia staring after him. Quentin introduces Tracy to Elizabeth Collins Stoddard. The Reno Collins matriarch is grateful to have Tracy there to help her out with busy Collins enterprises. She promises Tracy she will have her nights and weekends off. She'll begin tomorrow. Roger Collins, Liz's brother, enters and introductions are made. He has just returned from visiting his son David, who is attending boarding school in Europe with Haley Stokes. Their former governess, Maggie Evans, is visiting with her relatives in Canada. "Where's Mrs. Johnson, our housekeeper?" asks Roger. Liz explains Mrs. Johnson temporarily quit to take care of her gravely ill sister. Just then the phone rings and they receive word that the new housekeeper is waiting for someone to pick her up at the Collinsport Hotel. Roger leaves to get her. Sabrina Stewart, who had followed Chris Jennings back to Collinsport, stops by the Blue Well Tavern and finds the place largely empty at the moment. It didn't surprise her at all. She knows the people of Collinsport were afraid to come out at night after several horrible murders in the village by what some believe is the same wolf-like creature that terrorized the area 2 years ago. It is known these attacks happened on the night of the full moon, and there's going to be another full moon tonight. Sabrina hurries off to find Chris Jennings. Sabrina is walking in the woods after her car had run out of gas about a mile outside of town. She notices the old house off in the distance and decides to go there and ask for help. Suddenly aware of the time, she glanced up at the full moon. A cold chill surged through her. Sabrina senses another presence and becomes frightened. She starts to run towards the old house. Then, without warning, the snarling werewolf leaps out of the shadows and physically attacks the helpless girl. Carolyn Stoddard, Liz's daughter, and Ned Stewart, Sabrina's older brother, became a couple after Ned's return to Collinsport only a month ago. Ned has rented the old Maggie Evans cottage. Ned tells Carolyn he hasn't seen Sabrina since last night, and he's upset that the sheriff refuses to send his men out to look for her. He fears for Sabrina's safety after the recent rash of murders in the village. Carolyn tries to convince Ned his sister will be all right, but Ned remains worried. Julia has given Barnabas the first of 3 injections of her newest experiment she's positive will cure him of vampirism. Barnabas reminds Julia of her first attempt to cure him when he aged rapidly and attacked poor Carolyn. Julia is confident this newest experiment will succeed and he'll be normal again. Someone walks in and collapses on the floor. It's Sabrina Stewart. Barnabas and Julia rush to her. Sabrina Stewart is dead. At the Blue Whale, Ned admits to Carolyn he's angry at Chris because Sabrina followed him back to Collinsport. Carolyn insists Sabrina is deeply in love with Chris and would follow him anywhere. She wonders how Sabrina met Chris in the first place. Ned tells her his ex-girlfriend, Tracy Harridge, introduced them. Carolyn stares incredulously at Ned. She says her mother just hired a new secretary named Tracy Harridge. Ned is very interested in this bit of information and demands to hear more. Barnabas anxiously awaits for Julia at Commonwood. Julia shows up and reports she located Ned and Carolyn at the Blue Whale. She gently broke the tragic news of Sabrina's death, and Ned was understandably devastated. Carolyn is trying her best to console him. Both agree it had to be Chris who killed Sabrina while he was the werewolf. Barnabas urges Julia to find a cure for Chris. Julia isn't sure where to begin. Chris's condition is very complex. Roger and the new housekeeper arrive. Barnabas and Julia exchange alarmed glances. It's Angelique. Roger introduces Barnabas and Julia to Diana Taylor, the new housekeeper, then questions them about their strange reaction to her. Barnabas and Julia explain how they were just surprised to hear that Mrs. Johnson has left Collinwood. Roger excuses himself as he goes outside to his car to retrieve Diana's luggage. There was a long moment of awkward silence between the trio until Roger had gone out of sight. All this time, Diana was aware that Barnabas and Julia were studying her suspiciously. A smiling Diana takes her surroundings with a quick sweep. She comments on the room's old-fashioned charm and the portraits of long-dead count ancestors that hung on the richly paneled walls. Julia asks if it's her favorite room. Diana points out she only just arrived and has yet to see the rest of this magnificent house. Barnabas asks if Diana is her real name. I have no other, Diana replied with a hint of annoyance. She remarks how difficult it must be to find good help if they must interrogate everyone like common criminals. Barnabas apologetically tells Diana they were simply curious about her. Roger returns and says he's ready to show Miss Taylor to her room. Diana, half mockingly, thanks Barnabas and Julia for their warm New England hospitality. I feel right at home already. Diana follows Roger out of the drawing room, with Barnabas staring after her. Julia warns Barnabas not to trust Diana, who they both know is back at the Blue Whale. Chris enters. He is generally unaware of Sabrina, but he senses something is wrong, and he is nervous. Chris has a confrontation with the grieving, hot-tempered Ned as a helpless Carolyn watches. She barely prevented Ned from striking Chris. Chris demands to know what happened. Ned bluntly accuses Chris of killing Sabrina and being the wolf-like creature terrorizing Townsport. Distraught and shaken by Sabrina's death, Chris dashes out the door. Carolyn stops Ned from going after Chris. Carolyn advises Ned to find out exactly how Sabrina died. Ned insists Chris murdered his sister, and he's determined to make Chris pay. A despondent Chris stands near the edge of Little's Hill. He felt what he'd done to his beloved Sabrina was the final straw, and now his only choice was to end his unhappy existence. Carolyn appears and pleads with Chris not to jump. Chris admits he's the werewolf who murdered Sabrina. Carolyn, however, adamantly refuses to believe him. All of a sudden, Chris winces in pain and orders Carolyn to leave. Carolyn freezes in terror as Chris transforms into the werewolf. Carolyn screams, then 2 shots ring out. The bullet strikes the beast with such brute force, it stumbles backward over the cliffs, falling to its apparent death. Carolyn turns to see Ned standing there with a gun. Julia enters Collinwood and finds Diana smiling at the portrait of Barnabas Collins. Diana purposely comments on his uncanny resemblance to the current Barnabas. It's as if he posed for the portrait himself. Julia bitterly demands to know why Barnabas should interest her. You barely know the man. Then slowly, evenly, she adds, or do you? Diana says she doesn't understand why Julia seems hostile to her. You know why, Julia replied snappishly, because I know you are the evil witch Angelique who lived at Collinwood nearly 200 years ago. Diana laughs mockingly and suggests Julia seek immediate professional help. Julia wants Diana to stay away from Barnabas. Diana accuses Julia of being in love with Barnabas and jealous of her. Do you think of me as competition, Miss Hoffman? I try not to think about you at all, snaps Julia. She repeats her warning and stalks out. Diana returns her attention to the portrait. Quentin escorts Tracy to the Blue Whale. Tracy asks why Quentin thought she was Daphne Harridge, an ancestor of hers who was a governess at Collinwood, circa 1840. Quentin claims he had seen an old photo of Daphne and simply thought she returned from her grave as a ghost. Tracy reveals she had done extensive research on her ancestor and learned Daphne became engaged to Quentin's namesake, but both had died tragically at a house called Seaview. Quentin tells Tracy that Seaview still stands on the Collins property. He promises to show it to her later. He admits he is curious about her. Tracy tells Quentin she was born and raised in Boston, where her father and sister continue to live. She barely remembers her mother, who took off for parts unknown when she was very young. It's obvious there's a growing attraction between these two. Barnabas and Julia show up and are thunderstruck by Tracy's uncanny resemblance to Daphne, but they don't mention it to her. Tracy becomes slightly uncomfortable as Barnabas continues to stare at her. She claims she has a sudden headache, and she asks Quentin to take her back to Collinwood. They leave. Roger is gazing out the drawing room window. Diana enters. She apologizes for disturbing him. She was just trying to get familiar with the place. After a brief pause, she mentions Barnabas's remarkable resemblance to his ancestor's portrait in the foyer. Roger comments on Diana's own resemblance to someone from his past, his second wife, Cassandra. A suddenly uneasy Diana becomes strangely evasive and hurries out of the room. Roger simply shrugs it off and once again gazes out the window. Later, Roger has a dream. He discovers a coffin in the foyer and wonders why it's there. A moment later, he wakes up and finds himself standing in front of the Barnabas portrait. He wonders what it all means. He believes Barnabas and Julia might know the answer. Clinton and Tracy stand outside Collinwood. Tracy apologizes for cutting their evening short. Glenn asks if it had anything to do with Barnabas and Julia, but Tracy gives no reply. She claims she has seen a shadowy figure at the edge of the woods, apparently watching them. Glenn rushes off to the woods to investigate, leaving Tracy alone in the gardens. Then, without warning, a huge bat sweeps by and vanishes off into the night. Clinton returns, and Tracy explains what happened. Clinton quickly rushes her inside. Julia enters the old house and calls out for Barnabas. Willie Loomis appears instead. Julie asks if he has seen Barnabas. Willie says he hasn't seen Barnabas since he, Julian Stokes, returned from 1840. Julia warns Willie that Angelique is back and disguised as Diana Taylor, the new Collins housekeeper. She believes Angelique is responsible for Barnabas being a vampire again. Clem stares at the Barnabas portrait, wondering if he was responsible for frightening Tracy. His thoughts are interrupted by urgent knocking at the door. Clinton opens the door and is surprised to find Ned standing there. He assumes Ned came to see Carolyn, and he suggests Ned return in the morning. Ned announces he is there to see Tracy. Clinton, puzzled, demands to know why. Ned reveals he and Tracy were once engaged to be married. Clinton is stunned. Tracy appears and is startled to see Ned, who she thought was dead. Clinton asks why she never mentioned being engaged to Ned. Tracy explained she wanted to put that part of her life behind her when she left Boston. She was dating Ned 5 years ago when she introduced Ned's sister to Chris Jennings, who was living in her apartment building. Chris and Sabrina soon became a couple. Later, something mysteriously happened between Chris and Sabrina during a surprise party Sabrina was planning for Chris. Sabrina suffered from a nervous breakdown, and Chris suddenly left town. No one knew what happened between them. Ned and Tracy began to have serious trouble in their relationship because Ned blamed Tracy for Sabrina's problems. They broke up, and a short time later, Tracy heard Ned had died from a mysterious illness. Ned admits he purposely staged his own death, but refuses to explain why. He blames Tracy Sabrina's death and bluntly calls her a murderer. A tearful Tracy runs upstairs. Clem blames Ned for Chris's death and throws him out. Willie informs Julia he just found Barnabas at last inside his coffin down in the cellar. Julia sighs relief. Willie urges Julia to cure Barnabas. Julia assures Willie her latest experiment will succeed and Barnabas will be cured of vampirism once and for all. They leave, unaware that Roger was standing outside unseen, and he has overheard their entire conversation. It came as a shock. Tracy enters her bedroom and plows inside the door to turn on the light switch. but she never found it. Her attention focused on a dark figure in a corner of her room. The dark figure advances on her menacingly. Tracy never had a chance to scream. Roger sneaks inside the old house cellar and gave a startled gasp at the sight of the coffin. He didn't want to believe it, but now he knew it was true. Barnabas was a vampire and a member of the living dead. He fights against the instinct to panic. He decides he must go to the police. He had no other choice. Just then, a familiar voice rang out. "Roger Collins, what are you doing here?" It was a concerned but calm Barnabas. He realizes Roger knows his long-kept secret, and he pleads with Roger to listen to him. But it was too much. Roger's heart gave out, and he falls over dead. Liz stood before the large drawing room window with a look of concern crossing her matronly face. Elliot Stokes is at her side. Elliot is trying to convince Liz everything will be all right. Carolyn appears and asks what is going on. She just passed several police cars lined up outside along the gravel driveway. Elliot tells Carolyn that someone broke into the house and kidnapped Miss Harridge. Clinton and the police are searching the grounds for her now. Carolyn assumes Roger has also joined the search since he isn't there. Liz admits she fears someone is going to die tonight. Quentin is drawn to the long-abandoned Seaview by the ghost of Daphne Harridge. Why did she take him there? Was she trying to tell him this is where Tracy's kidnapper is hiding her? He enters and immediately discovers a coffin. Did it belong to Barnabas? Was he Tracy's kidnapper? He opens the coffin and finds an unconscious Tracy inside. The Ned appears, laughing maniacally and bearing fangs. Quentin reacts with horror, demanding to know if Barnabas did this to him. Ned explains he became a vampire when he was bitten by a bat while searching the woods for Sabrina. He kept it a secret from Carolyn, who never asked him why he never appeared during the day. He blames Tracy for Sabrina's death and his vampirism. He plans to push Tracy off Widow's Hill. Quentin pleads with Ned to let Tracy go and says he believes Dr. Hoffman can cure him. Ned scoffs at him and his suggestion. He attacks Quentin. Then Ned takes off with the unconscious Tracy. Liz is staring blankly out the drawing room window of Collinwood. Poor Roger, she sadly murmurs half to herself. Carolyn and Elliot try their best to console her. But Liz is distraught and seems not to know they are there. A look of despair shadows Carolyn's face. Diana appears and asks what is wrong. Elliot tells her about Roger's death and Tracy's kidnapping. Diana offers her condolences, then hurriedly exits the house. Julia reports to Barnabas that she gently broke the tragic news of Roger's death to the family at Collinwood. She explains he had died of an apparent heart attack. She had to give Liz a sedative, and Carolyn and Elliot are with her. Barnabas wonders what Roger was doing in the cellar. Julia blames Angelique for Roger's death and insists she must be stopped. Barnabas reluctantly agrees. Willie brings in a dazed and weak Quentin. He found Quentin wandering in the woods. They are all shocked at the sight of 2 puncture wounds on Quentin's neck, but realize that Quentin's portrait in the attic protected Quentin from death and rising as a vampire. Quentin tells them Ned Stewart is the vampire. Ned kidnapped Tracy and took her to Widow's Hill where he plans to kill her. A guilty Barnabas reveals it was Ned who turned him into a vampire again the night Julian Stokes, returned from 1840. He apologizes for keeping it a secret. Barnabas instructs Julie and Lily to take Glenn upstairs to Josette's room. Then he flies off like a bat out of hell to rescue Tracy and destroy Ned. As Ned is about to push Tracy off Little's Hill, she pleads with Ned to let her go and reminds him he once loved her. Ned angrily insists she must pay for Sabrina's death. Diana appears and calmly tells Ned she plans to take Tracy safely back to Collinwood. Ned threatens to kill them both. When Ned is momentarily distracted, Tracy escapes and runs off to safety, but a furious Ned captures Diana and says she must die for interfering. Barnabas shows up and he demands Ned let Diana go. Ned laughs harshly since Barnabas will watch Diana die. Barnabas jumps Ned, and during a fierce struggle, Diana is thrown to the ground and Ned is pushed against a sharp tree limb that pierces his heart and destroys him instantly. Barnabas rushes to Diana, who struck her head and is dying. Diana weakly admits she is Angelique. She explains she did not die of the gunshot wound in 1840 and had climbed up Glenn's stairway in time before Desmond House had destroyed them. She says she was not responsible for Roger's death and swears Ned must have tricked him. Ned offers to get help, but Diana says it's too late. She is human now and knows she's going to die. She dies in his arms. Barnabas cries out, "No!" Glenn and Tracy are happily reunited. He asks her to marry him. She agrees. Barnabas reports to Julia he had Willie bury Angelique's body in Eagle Hill Cemetery. He insists Angelique had changed and was not the evil person they remember from the past. "I've changed too from when we first met," he reminds her. Julia says she finds it strange how Angelique showed up and willingly sacrificed her life to save Tracy. What happened tonight doesn't make any sense to her. "When does anything ever make sense at Collinwood?" Barnabas replies with a small smile. Dark Shadows 1971 was a Jim Davis production.